Hey guys, if you've been following recent changes to Mistweaver Monk talents in the Dragonflight beta, you'll know the developers are steadily increasing support for ranged, or at least non-fistweaving builds. And while I think they'll get the tuning right and figure out the healing side of ranged Mistweaving, I think the real issue they're overlooking is some players' continued want for ranged DPS gameplay options. Fistweaving thrives on the interactive synergy between the skills, talents, and other bonuses it has. Meanwhile, a Mistweaver's ranged DPS skills are not only few, but they're completely undeveloped and lacking any interaction or synergy with the rest of the toolkit. That being said, I wanted to share some concepts, some wishful thoughts, of what I think a ranged DPS Mistweaver could look like. I've tried to limit my imagination to keep this within the realm of actual possibility, focusing on adding new functionality to existing skills, creating new interactions and synergy between parts of our ranged toolkit, and in a couple of places proposing ranged equivalents to the core melee DPS skills. So here they are. The first three concepts are minor ones, designed to complement each other, the kinds of things you'd likely see as choice nodes or talents gated deep inside a theoretical ranged DPS build. Concept 1. Increase the maximum channel duration of Crackling Jade Lightning by 50%, its damage increasing the longer you channel. After the cast ends or is cancelled, it triggers a small burst of AoE damage centered on the target, again dealing more damage based on the channel duration. The idea here would be to give monks a more powerful version of their lightning, while creating decision space in terms of maximizing channel time for single target damage, or timing the burst to hit as many enemies as possible. Second concept. Channeling Crackling Jade Lightning briefly empowers Spinning Crane Kick to deal 100% additional nature damage, beginning when the cast ends and lasting twice as long as the time spent channeling. This would be more of a hybrid ranged option, giving you access to short periods of AoE burst damage at the cost of having to step briefly into melee range. Third concept. Every target hit by your Chi Burst increases the damage of your next Crackling Jade Lightning by 75%, also causing it to strike an additional target. The maximum of this would be 225% additional damage to 3 targets. And of course you'd want a little flexibility, so there would be an additional choice node to increase the target cap to 5 for a maximum of 375% damage. Or, the other choice being to reduce the target cap to 2, but increase the damage to 200% per target. G-Burst is a talent that a lot of Mistweavers take, but that isn't very interesting on its own. This could give it a bit of functionality as a skill shot for the ranged DPS toolkit, or at the very least a bit of intentional interaction with Crackling Jade Lightning. Now onto the bigger concepts. The next one isn't very original, it's really just a conversion of melee kicks into ranged variants that are designed to mimic the fist-weaving DPS rotation. I drew a bit of inspiration from the friendly AI in the tank version of the Proving Ground scenario, which casts a lot of these ranged Mistweaver abilities. In this conversion, Tiger Palm would become Focused Jade Lightning, which would be a variation on the existing spell that ticks every 1 second for 3 seconds, granting a stack of a buff, let's call it Chi Renewal, with every tick, with a max of 10 stacks. Blackout Kick would convert to Jade Shock, a small burst of damage on a short cooldown. This shock would consume all applications of the buff, Chi Renewal, reducing the cooldown of Chi Blast, which is going to be the ranged alternative to Rising Sun Kick, by 10% per. And Rising Sun Kick would become a single target Chi Blast, determined by a choice node to have either 2 charges baseline or to have an interaction with Thunder Focus Team, similar to the existing one with RSK. There isn't a lot more to say about this concept, it really is just the fist-weaving melee rotation but ranged. I really like the idea of a choice node letting you pick a second charge baseline for Chi Blast and Rising Sun Kick, versus the existing interaction with Thunder Focus Team, both for this theoretical ranged build and the existing fist-weaving setup. It's for the same reasons that having a second charge of Keg Smash in Brewmaster feels so good. It lets you vary the pace of your rotation a bit without punishing you for sitting on a cooldown for an extra second or 2. This next concept is probably my favorite, but I'll admit it might not translate well to high movement encounters. Simply put, have the Jade Serpent and White Tiger statues function completely differently, triggering different effects based on which healing spells you dump into them, rather than having them be the mostly passive objects you place in the environment that they are now. First, you'd have the healing-oriented Jade Serpent statue. Casting Life Cocoon on the statue redistributes the absorption evenly across the entire group, increased by healing or overhealing previously done to the statue, up to 150%. Casting Vivify directly on the statue would cause it to channel a single lesser Soothing Mist on all allies with Renewing Mist on them. Casting Enveloping Mist on the statue would return 30% of your mana spent and cause it to cast Soothing Breath on however many nearby allies, basically the Yu'lon functionality. If you were to cast Renewing Mist on the statue, it would give it a 50% increased duration, and although it would do no effective healing to the statue, when it expires, it would then jump to an injured player. This would allow you to plan ahead, taking an unneeded charge of Renewing Mist and setting it up to reappear 30 seconds later when you might want it extra hot for some more Vivify cleaving. Then we have the White Tiger statue, which is far more DPS oriented. If you channel Soothing Mist on the statue, it could begin to expel lightning for 10 seconds, dealing damage in a small radius around it. Damage would be increased by how long you channel on the statue, and this lightning would apply Mystic Touch to all enemies hit. Casting Vivify directly on your statue could cause it to gain a stack of Corrosive Dosage to a maximum of 3 stacks, and then you would activate them by casting Enveloping Mist on the statue, releasing a burst of AoE damage based on the number of stacks consumed. Touching the statue with Refreshing Jade Wind could cause the statue to gain Rushing Jade Wind, which is the damage version of the same spell, for 6 seconds. Now these are just the initial interactions I came up with, but I love the idea of both statues being conduits for damage and healing, but based on your healing to them. Now I know I said a statue-centric toolkit might not work in high movement encounters, but what if you could choose whether to place them at specific locations, or instead assign them to hover beside you? I love the statues as conduits idea because it leaves so much room for innovation, and the complexity of it all just could be really fun to figure out. So those are my ideas for now. Thanks for tuning in to what was basically a bit of class development fan fiction. Whether you like any of these ideas, or hate the entire notion of ranged Mistweavers being able to DPS, let me know what you think in the comments. Until then, thanks for watching, and have a good one.